What's going on, apes, outliers, outlier apes, everybody that's in the house? Welcome to another episode of kind of like, I don't know, it's like GameStop analysis, I suppose. Yeah, that's actually what it's called. GameStop analysis. It's perfect. That's what comes to mind. Right now we're in a little bit of the throes of a mid-series where we are analyzing all of Roaring Kitty's old trades, and essentially what we're doing is going line by line through his Reddit page, as you can see here, and we are going through each and every single one of these updates, and we are learning more and more about his habits, the way that he structures trades. And I always give this same disclaimer: the entire reason why I do this is literally just because I find it interesting. It is not because I think it makes sense at all to attempt to replicate what he's doing, what he's done. I think that's a real tough route to take. So all of that aside, what we're looking at here is so far a really, really, really interesting saga. And let's recap it quickly. Before we recap it, you already know, I got to grab the chat. I got to see who's here hanging out on Saturday, getting ready to dive into some Roaring Kitty GME action. So I see we got Coffee House test confirmed. We are alive and well. We got Catch Me On, who is here second. Marcus Trader, Jonathan. We got Generational Capital. That's what we're all pursuing here, so that's good to see. Willie, Der Schlupp, Day Swag, Cedric, that Lauren is good. And as you all know, there's a bunch of familiar names to me at this point, and it probably means there's a bunch of familiar names for you too. So hopefully you're making some friends along the way. We also got Mr. Off Putin here hanging out. Beautiful. All right, so you already know, before we get too far into the weeds here, we do have to grab my little GME live stream map and see if there's any updates we need to make to this. So if you've already let me know where you're from, you don't have to let me know. But if you've not let me know where you're from, let me know. Right now, it looks like from a US perspective, we really need to get some people in the central north. I don't know if that's what, I don't know. Is this called the West? I guess it's the West. What is this? What do you call this? I don't like the Midwest. I think the Midwest is stupid. So there's like, this is actually, I've never really analyzed the map this way, because this is what, like the center of the US, if I were to eyeball a line? Is this right? Where's like the midline of the US? Because I know that we would call this the Midwest, but I don't really get why. Because this is just like the West, and then there's the East. Northeast makes sense, Southeast makes sense, Southwest makes sense, Northwest makes sense, but this is kind of like the middle of the US. That's the Mountain West. Huh. I don't know if I get on with that. If you were to eyeball a midline through the US, where would it be? Because to me, I'm thinking it's something like here through Minnesota. Because technically, Maine really skews us over to this side a lot. So this would be like the center of the US is what? Like eastern Kansas / Missouri? Something like that? Jimmy says not many people live in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Dakotas. Yeah, definitely. That's why we need to get representation here, because we have to fill these in. We're very close. We're very, very close. Jimmy says I'm in Denver, Colorado. It's considered the West. If you go to Kansas or more east, would be considered the Midwest. Oh, that's fucking, you've completely, you got my mind in a blender. Yeah, I'm in a blender. I would consider Colorado the West, because that's actually, we're looking at moving here outside of Colorado Springs. So we might be, well, for us, it would be moving east because we're down here. But I still think that that's West. This is where I started, was in New York. Sposecar says North Central. Yeah, that's what this feels like to me, is like North Central US. But I don't think that that's what we call it. I don't know. All right, so let me see if there's any that we needed to add. It looks like we need to add Roseville, California. And this is for via Villalobos. I was going to say Villalobos because that's, I don't know where my mind would go with that. Roseville, so just outside of Sacramento. I think we have Washington representation already. So we're good with Washington. Fort Worth, I'm almost positive we have. Yep, so there's Dallas, Fort Worth. We'll call that good. We do have a Mexican. Oh, wait, do we have a Mexican? Yeah, so we do have a Mexican. We need a Cuban. We do have one South American, which is good. Yep. And then we need an African. We need a Middle Eastern for sure. Russian, I don't even know if they can get on this, but if they can, that would be good. I would like a New Zealander. Honestly, if we can get a person from Iceland, Greenland, if there's a way for one of you to find somebody from Madagascar to get onto one of these live streams so I can fill in that dot, that would be magic, I think. I think that would be absolutely magical to have somebody from Madagascar, because I don't know if I've ever literally met anybody. I mean, I think that, is there even like cities or anything there? Or is it, yeah, it looks like there's cities, there's roads and everything. Shows you how much I know. I don't know anything about Madagascar. Yeah, it looks like Madagascar. All right, we'll get started in just a second as we finish going around Madagascar. I had a boss when I was in the Marine Corps. He wanted to go to Madagascar when we were in Australia. That was like one of his game plans, but he never had a chance to make it over there. We'll do like a little street view real quick and see. All right, what's going on here? That looks like civilization over there, doesn't it? Yeah, let's check this out. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I feel like they have it. This feels like they have internet. If not, I mean, you get a Starlink now. Daddy Elon takes care of that for everybody. So yeah, this looks like they would have internet. It's not like completely out in the middle of nowhere. All right, and let's grab like some random ass spot in Madagascar really quick. Where do you guys want to go? North or South Madagascar? I want to see if I can find something that's like out in the middle of nowhere. I think that would be really cool. Wiggly says, who needs civilization when you have empty land to sit in? Yeah. Northeast. Got it. Let's do Northeast. Let's click this. This looks good. Oh, this reminds me of like Costa Rica. This is like straight up rainforest action. That's not what I expected. From there, oh, let's check out the coast really fast. Is there anything that's close to this coast that we can click? Come on, Google. Here we go. I knew Google would keep it real for us. Who knew? Not at all what I expected. Not even remotely what I expected. That's fascinating. I genuinely thought that that was going to be like a sandy beach. I did not expect that at all. Wow, that's so cool. Okay, so yeah, we definitely need someone to get us a representative from Madagascar. It feels like that's gotta happen. Okay, so I think we're caught up on the updates here, though. Yeah, Costa Rica is sick. Completely agree. Jimmy says, I honestly pictured all of Madagascar as a jungle. I think that's like a really fair cop, right? Like, I think, because this looks very deserty. And then this, you could tell, is like super tropical up here. So yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Eric, it sounds like you visited. Have you been to the Pacific or Caribbean side of the country? Both. Yeah, I've been to both. I've been super fortunate. I've been a lot of places at this point in my life, but one of my favorite hobbies is actually scuba diving. So pretty much everything that's in this area, I've hit. Like I've been out here to the Galapagos. Yeah, I've been through, pretty much most of the Caribbean I've been. I haven't been to Cuba because I was still on active duty for most of the time, and Cuba was still, communist, not allowed to go there for military people, especially with, like, if you have a clearance, they don't let you. but pretty much everybody else, everywhere else in the Caribbean have been. All right, so now pivot over. Quick recap. Where are we at? We've now left Madagascar and we have now teleported to the end of January of 2021. And we've gone through, how many trades have we done so far? I haven't even counted. How many is this? 31 trades. Well, 31 position updates, I should say. It's definitely more trades than this. And Day Swag says, I'd love to buy a house one day in Jamaica so I can be with my family. I've been to Jamaica, and I have to be honest, I didn't have a great time. Jamaicans in general that I met were awesome. The part that I didn't really like is they kept stealing shit from us. That got a little old. Every time that we would try to, I like snorkeling and scuba diving. So every time we would try to find a spot on the beach to be able to go in and like snorkel, we would try to put our stuff somewhere and the shit was gone like almost every time. That got super frustrating. So I just wish they didn't have to take my shit when I went in the water, because most of the places that I've been in the Caribbean, it's kind of like the exact opposite, where it is much, it's like there was a place when I was in Cayman Brac, the smaller Cayman Island. I had to go get a buddy from the airport there, and we were figuring out, because like they didn't have like Uber or Lyft at the time. So we're like figuring out how we were going to get over there. Literally, we were sitting at a bar, not drinking. We were grabbing lunch because it was like midday. Literally, the bartender was just like, "Oh, just take my car." Literally, that's what it was like on Cayman Brac. And at first, that sounds crazy, right? It's like, take your fucking car. Like who would offer that? But then you also realize that there is literally nowhere to go. Cayman Brac is tiny. We rode around it on a bicycle. So they have like a very home style feeling there. And when I was in Jamaica, it wasn't quite like that. The other place that I had that kind of experience was the Dominican Republic. Because the other thing is, when I travel to these places, I do not do the resort thing. I'm very active. So I like to rent a car everywhere I go. I like to drive everywhere around where I go. And in the DR, I had to give them money so that they didn't take my wallet. And then in Mexico, they do that too. But in Mexico, they do that to everybody. So yeah, there's a couple places that are like that are a little more exploitive, I would say. But I mean, the other thing is, I don't know, some people, especially from America, we feel some type of way if you get extorted like that. But for a lot of these other places, it's just like, it's annoying. Nobody likes it, but it's just kind of like how it fucking goes, right? So like if you have to pay I had to pay the Mexican cops like $80, and it like is what it is, right? You just fucking pay them the $80 and then you just keep going with your day. And the funny part about that too was when I met up with the dive boat, like the people I was diving with, that's when I was driving up to La Paz. So it was like way up out there. And it was so funny because we were coming up to a stop sign, and the funniest story, and then we'll get into Roaring Kitty, I promise. But we were coming up to a stop sign, and we were out in the middle, again, like towards La Paz, not quite there yet. So like there was nobody else there. We were straight up the only white people. And I don't blend in with Mexicans. There are some lighter hair Mexicans, but everything about me doesn't say, this guy's from here, obviously. So we're coming up to the stop sign. I literally can see a cop sitting on the other side of the stop sign. And I look over to my passenger and I'm like, yo, nobody is stopping at the stop sign. And I have this conversation. I see a cop at the other side of this stop sign. This is going to feel weird, but I am going to come to a complete stop at this stop sign because I can see the cop right there watching this stop sign. Sure as fucking shit. I come to a complete dead stop. Do the count 2 seconds thing. I start pulling off. They pull us over, and I don't speak Spanish well, but I can understand it. Okay. And he literally told me that I didn't stop at the stop sign. And I literally just started laughing because he knew I stopped. I knew I stopped, but I also knew what was going on. I knew what time it was. And I literally just asked him, I was like, ¿Cuánto cuesta? Like, how much is this going to be for me to not stop at this stop sign? And he was funny about it. He was just like, he's like, you know, we just need to go get lunch. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, are you guys getting drinks with your lunch, or is this just like a normal lunch? And he's like, $200 will do. And I was just like, $200? I was like, dog, what the fuck are you smoking? And I open up my wallet. I never keep all the money when I travel, like in the actual billfold. I squirrel most of it away. And I was just like, dog, I have $60. Will that work? And he's like, I had a pastor with me. He's like, if she has another 20, we'll call it good. So we had to fucking pay these dudes $80, and then, you know, we kept driving. But on the same token, they had no tolls. So I guess you just kind of count that as a toll. It was so fucking funny. So yeah, learned a bunch of lessons there, because in the DR, they try to take my driver's license. So I actually take an old driver's license and I put that on the top, because what they try to do to extort you is they'll take your driver's license, they won't give it back to you. And then they'll say, follow me to the police station. That's what they try to do. They try to bring you to the police station. So I found it works really well if you have essentially an old license or something that you don't care if they take, and then you just drive to the fucking hotel, because they won't fuck with you at the hotels, because the hotels will stand up for you, because they obviously are trying to get tourism and industry going there, which stuff like bribery really nukes, because it's not super fun. Like, I wouldn't go back to Jamaica at this point. I think it's a beautiful place. I liked it, but I didn't like all the fuck games there. So Sneal says, bro was laughing about getting robbed $80. Dude, it's all life experience. Yeah, it was the circumstance of that pullover was the funniest fucking thing, because I had an entire conversation with my passenger about stopping. I came to the most obnoxious full stop you could possibly come to. And then the first thing he says to me is, you didn't stop at that stop sign. I was just like, it's pure comedy. It's pure fucking comedy. And I was just like, well, just fucking see how much it takes to get out of here. So, I mean, that's also just getting used to the way that the world works, right? Because Westerners, the idea of like bribery is crazy, right? The idea of like trying to pay a cop off on the side of the road is like the fucking wildest thing on earth. But in a lot of the world, that's how these motherfuckers get down. It's how you move around. So you just kind of take it for what it is. And I mean, it's $80, right? Like, we're okay. They didn't fucking bother us more than that. These are just some dudes trying to make some fucking money. I don't agree with it. I think it's fucked up, but what am I going to do, right? H has it the exact way. Pay to play. You kind of know what you're doing when you're getting there, and it's all good. You just fucking, you now have a hilarious story to tell people, because that Lauren says, I've heard Russia is worse. Russia, yeah, that place, you got to be super careful. I've never been there, so I can't say, but I've had friends that are from there and whatnot. And that's a different ball game, because yeah, they play hard, and they go hard in the paint. So yeah. All right. So should we start with diving into the trades, or do you guys want to do a quick recap of GME activity last week? I am cool with either or. We can start with whatever makes you happy. I was looking through, we got to 2021. So there's no way we're going to get through the rest of his trades today. I just don't see that happening. So I'm guessing this will probably be like a 6-part series, give or take, just because there really is so much with all these trades to keep track of. Yeah, okay, so it looks like Esoteric, you've been strongly outvoted, and we're gonna run through a quick recap. So let's get that going. So first and foremost, let's grab GME. Okay, so there's a few things that I saw from a high level. I'm not going to go super far into detail on like price action and stuff like that, because one, it is what it is. Two, I did a video on Thursday that talks about some of that, so I don't want to waste too much of your time with that. If there's questions, obviously happy to answer. But from a general perspective, what I would highlight for you here is that GameStop clearly, once the market concluded, GameStop really started to find a little bit of strength. And here's a really, really important point to the strength that I see. If I show you the Russell, what do you notice different about GameStop versus Russell? And I'll make this a little easier to track here. So if I throw GameStop up top, and then I throw Russell down here, and then I'll change both of these to a 3-month daily to get a slightly better scale. What's the difference on the week that you notice there? Really important. And I'll explain why this is so important. But how did they do on the week comparatively? And the reason why I think this is so important to highlight for you is because when I look at H says inverse, there you go. They finally broke the correlation, because for quite a while, when we look at GameStop, we can clearly see GameStop was actually struggling a little bit. And a big part of that, I think, was the larger small cap space coming under fire, just having pressure. Now, with the post earnings drop, and even still, small caps are showing upward strength, a little bit of downward pullback, but still upward strength. But the relationship is now generally broken in a short-term time frame. Because if we go to like 9/16 into the 19th, GameStop's going down while smalls are going up. Then we have smalls from the 19th into the 25th going down. Then we have GameStop going up. So this definitely looks like it was largely suppressed, and then it starts rebounding back up and out. So we have to absolutely track the relationship between these, because it helps us understand the prospective price movement for sure. Roaring Titty's here, everybody. Big giant shout out to fan favorite Roaring Titty. Roaring Titty says, do we get to talk any tinfoil later? You know I'm always down. I literally had my wife construct for me a tinfoil hat. So yeah, as soon as it's time to get into theories, I am so down. But from a price action standpoint, there's not really any theories here. This is unfortunately looking at boring, cold, hard data. That is what it is, right? Who likes that stuff? It's like, that's like the stuff for nerds, you know? It's like when I think about the stuff that I like typically look at, I realize it's like, no wonder why nobody likes this shit. I don't know why I do, but I do. So that's the first thing I see with respect to GameStop and its behavior around the indices, specifically small caps, which I think is very important to flag. Okay, cool. That point's been made. Now let's go back and take a look at a couple other things that I want to flag for GameStop specifically. The first thing is I'm seeing volume tailor off, but not drop entirely. That's another exceedingly important point right now. So if I go into this space in here, right? So this space being pretty much anything from the 5th of August into earnings almost, I can see overall volume is very, very, very light, right? So I can see volume here is 6.5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 5, 3.5, 3.5, 3.1, 3.3, 4, 4.7, so on and so forth. Right, so we're talking like sub 5 almost this entire time. Then we get in here, we have on the 20th, 62 million shares transact. That drops to 13.9, 12.1, 6.1, 5.7, and then ticks back up to 7.4. So when we look at this volume activity, it's showing me a different structure, a different behavior pattern than what I see here, and then also even from what I see in here. And as always, I am a data-driven trader. I'm going to look for other cues, symbols, pieces of information to help me construct the broader thesis of what I think may or may not be going on. But what I can objectively say is that it is not supremely quiet still. It is below average volume periods. That is not surprising at all. I'm looking at relative volume for 5 and 20-day periods, and there's no shock. The reason why there's no shock is because there's going to be a massive spike in volume around earnings. That's super normal. Then we have the at the market that obviously is going to contribute to some of this. And then we have the post at the market that obviously is going to contribute to some of the compression being relieved. So now, when I look at this, I still see elevated volume, and I'm very curious to see where it goes. So Sam Clemens says, what's your price target for your long shares? I don't have one. It's because I'm not really trading the long shares. The long shares, I've told you guys this a while ago. The long shares that I have on, it's literally just to show some love to the ape community and to move in solidarity with you all. There's another one that I already told you. I also have shares in AMC, and that's, again, from a bet that I made on a live stream, like literally, I think like 3 years ago or some shit. So for something like, for the GameStop shares, the AMC shares, it's no target. It's literally just shit that I'm holding to show some love. Now, in terms of like the trading though, because for me, I trade GameStop with options. I trade most things with options because that's my bread and butter. And I like the way I can construct trades. But right now, I am in no specific fashion to do anything with options. I traded a little bit of this breakout that I immediately flattened the next day. And the reason, and I didn't even catch most of this breakout. I essentially got into on the 20th. I just jumped in when it was breaking above this kind of this volume profile right here, this node. So it's like when it was at 20 and a half. And then I got out when it was like 21.90, right? So it's like a 1.5 move. It really was nothing to write home about, but it's just to essentially gain a little bit of exposure to the movement because I do know that it tends to exhibit some follow through. But right now I'm still just trading primarily short calls against the long shares, which I know some people don't like that, but I'm not going to not say it because it's what I'm doing and I'm going to always keep it a buck with you guys. So yeah, I don't say that because I want GameStop to go down or anything like that, but it's because I'm a fucking trader. So that's the way that I'm built. So yeah, that's the main thing that I'm doing right now. But yeah, really no price target just yet. The one thing I will flag as well is that we are now firmly into this point of control. And the reason why I think it's important to highlight this point of control is because it's actually quite persistent across a few different time frames. So that tells me that there are a lot of transactions happening right around this handle. So we have one point of control on the short-term time frame. It's really difficult to see, but there it comes out to here. So that means that there's a lot of volume at that price handle, being the 22 handle. And then the next point of control above that is literally right up here around the 25 handle. So there's a ton of people interested in transacting at these levels. And again, you have seen, I've not drawn any new lines on this for a really long time. These are the same lines in terms of support and resistance lines as far as I see it. These I actually can take off for the time being because these don't really matter. These are all built off of that squeeze. But I'm not drawing any sort of new support and resistance. I've kept these the same. This one realistically is going back further. I actually would keep that one closer to there. So I think we can modify that one. And I think this represents more or less what I see here. So yeah. Roaring Clay says, did you DRS your shares? I didn't. It's just held through the brokerage. I do have them turned off for loaning, but I don't have them DRS'd. And the main reason is because it's kind of an annoying process to go through. Just again, keeping it a buck with you. So I keep everything within the same brokerage platform. So yeah. Roaring Titty says he doesn't realize he's one of us. I really appreciate that, but I continue to remind you guys, I don't like the idea of like considering myself an ape because I'm still relatively new to this. Most of you have been along most of my journey with this, and I started paying attention to like the story, the background, primarily from, I would call it May is when I started getting more into it. So I still feel like I'm too new to it. So it doesn't feel right to like, because I have a lot of respect for the people that have been following this for a long time. Like every time that I talk to somebody like Newton, who's been following this thing as close as he has, like I obviously would completely consider him an ape. And I think he's like deserved the title, so to speak. But that's the thing. I don't know. I feel weird about trying to take a title that I don't necessarily feel like I deserve or that I've earned yet. Not that it's like, you know, this big prestigious thing, but a lot of it comes from my time in the military, right? Like we want to earn whatever it is. That's a big part of the psyche. So I definitely am doing my best to like learn about the story, learn about the background. I still literally text with Newton almost every single day to bounce ideas around and to learn a little bit more. But yeah, I still feel like I haven't put in the time yet. because there have been people in this thing for 4 fucking years. Well, three and change, which is a long time, man. So I still consider myself a bit more of a guest. And it's more just out of respect than anything. So yeah. Generational Capital says, do you sell covered calls? Not covered. I essentially will never sell covered calls, but I always sell calls at a ratio. So yeah, I really like ratio covered calls, but that's essentially what I have on now in GameStop. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want to cap my upside. And I'll walk you through, again, for anybody that's not seen it, I'll always show you this because I think it's super, super important. Here. So if I have, let's say, for example, again, this is using my IRA pass-through account, so there's no money in it. It's just blank. This is also going to be regulation T. So, but let's say if I have 25,000 shares of GameStop, and I'm not going to get rid of these other positions because most of these are the cats, which I'm going to have to go back through. This was an example that I did recently, so I can kill these two. So let's say that there's 25,000 shares, and let's say the basis is like 19. Now, in the trade right now, it's up 86 grand or whatever. Cool. Now, here's the problem. If I come in here and I sell calls against it, and you'll notice something. As I click this button more and more times, you're going to see that that right-hand side is going to move further and further down. So if I kind of fast forward our time a little bit and pretend that this is at a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I have 25,000 long shares and I sell 250 calls against it, which represents the same size, you'll notice a really, really problem, like a big problem. And it's specifically that we lose our upside profit potential, which I have no interest in doing that, even though I really have no real game plan to sell the shares. Again, I've already told you that, just being completely honest. It's still just anti the way that I trade. So I'm still going to generally apply the same fundamentals that I would. So in this kind of instance, when I look at something like this, instead of doing like 250, if I sell something like 100 calls, well, you'll notice that I get plenty of upside potential still. I'm not giving up a ton of upside, but then I can still collect a fairly meaningful amount of premium against those options. So that's the general idea here. It allows for a little bit of income generation or just taking in premium when things are going sideways. It helps generate some profit, but I wouldn't want to give up upside essentially ever. And because here's why. This is the entire reason why. If we look at this position, guess what? We now have capped profit potential, right? We know how much we can make right from the jump. We are stuck at $138,000. Fine. Here's the issue. If we look to the left-hand side, we are still taking on the entire downside risk profile, So what I'm doing is I'm taking the downside risk, but I don't get the profit potential. I don't like that. And it's exactly why I don't typically mess with covered calls at all in anything I trade. It will always be at a ratio, and that's so that I can appreciate to the upside. It's a big part. Christian says ape. That's what an ape would say. That's hilarious. Sneal says, don't worry, you're a GME enthusiast, as Newton would say. Yeah, I think that that's completely fair. I am absolutely a giant enthusiast of GME. The entire, I've told you guys this a million times, and I'm always happy to say it again because it's so fucking cool. But I've been trading a long time, right? Like I'm coming up on my 17th year of trading, and trading has changed my life. It's why I do the whole YouTube thing. It's not because I belong on a camera. But this is such a curious story. Everything about it. And that's why, again, if you'll notice at the beginning of the stream when I was talking about the cat, I am beyond infatuated with the way that he does things because it is so anomalous. So it's like I'm looking at something like if I'm looking at nature, that's what this feels like. I'm looking at nature being the stock market, and I'm seeing something that doesn't fit in with anything I've ever seen before. So I can't help but keep looking at it because it's so strange. Absolutely super, super strange. So yeah, I think that's a great way to, frame it. Roaring Titty says, why do you think so many people haven't left GME? It's not only the squeeze, it's the story. Definitely. And that's one of the things I love about the apes. I learn a lot from you guys. That's one of it's one of the very neat things about this is that what you'll find is there's a lot of things that I think apes generally lack knowledge of. And that's not to throw shade, but it is what it is. But there's a lot of very interesting things that apes know an insane amount about. And I get a chance to tap into some of those things over time, which is actually really, really fun for me. I'm a big fan. Willie says, thoughts on GME maintaining price above 19 post 2 sizable dilutions? Demand. That's exactly what that tells me. And I talked about this before. Even when it started catching on this thread down here, the fact that it dropped down to these levels and then continued to get bid up, it tells me that people do absolutely value this thing at a certain level. And this is before even when they did that first offering. I think one of the biggest things about the first offering is that provided a absolute exit for a lot of systemically short positions that were able to now access shares relatively easily. And that gave them a big out. But before that, this was being systemically shorted massively. So the fact that in those conditions, it didn't get bid down heavily, it tells me that there's demand for those shares. So yeah, I think without a doubt, the fact that this has continued to hold these handles is really, really important because it starts alluding to what the intrinsic value of the stock might be perceived to be, which is not to be confused with whatever we try to calculate its cash value at. People obviously still value the brand, the intellectual property, which is a really important thing to see, that it's not simply being valued at cash. So yeah, for sure. For sure. Dr. Zaya says you may be a rookie, but you're like a top 5 draft pick. Yeah, I am a rookie. I've been looking at, again, it's been like 4 months. I'm very, very new to this. So Christian says guest ape. Yeah, I think I do view myself as a guest. I think that's fair. Sam says, any of y'all watch Jackie 2? Between him, Richard, and the different perspectives are fascinating. Got it. I don't know anything about Jackie. I've heard some of you mention him before, but this goes back to the other thing is like I talked about this on my standard YouTube channel videos and live streams and stuff. Like I don't watch anybody's shit because I just kind of do my own thing. I think the main thing is with somebody like Newton, because I don't really catch all of his videos either, but I'll talk with him. And the thing with Newton is like, he was unbelievably gracious and useful for me. Like when I'm developing my background understanding of things and like understanding the qualitative components that I'm not so sure about. But yeah, I don't really watch much of anything because most of the time I spend the vast majority of the time like doing what I consider to like doing work. Like I like to go in, look at things for myself. And even when I have conversations with somebody like Newton, the main thing with him is he has a lot of background information, but I still like to go in and validate what I'm seeing. And it's just because I understand how humans perceive things. And again, it's because I've been trading for a long time. I understand all these different cognitive biases, confirmation biases, availability biases, all of these different kinds of things that kind of paint the way that we perceive information, which I guard so heavily against because my entire objective as a trader to be is as objective as humanly possible in the analysis of things. So yeah, I spend so much time doing that personally, but I think that for anybody that watches stuff, obviously I would always 100% recommend Newton. Like Newton, I think you cannot go wrong with, because he has so much qualitative background. From a trading perspective, like I don't trade the way he does. I can tell you that for sure. But with like the trading element aside, the amount of information that he has and he's taken the time to build around this thing is like just straight up second to none. I haven't met many other people that have the background that he does. So yeah, I literally am a massive fan of Newton. And anytime anybody asks me about GameStop, I literally always direct them to him because he's the dude. The thing when it comes to like looking at, again, GameStop, I would trust my eyes analyzing the stock and analyzing the options and analyzing the movement over anybody else. And that's not to say that, I'm better than anybody else. It's just, I trust my eyes. I trust my experience. But when it comes to taking a look at the breadth of the story, how things have evolved, the characters, I literally call Newton the GME scribe because he is straight up the scribe that has tracked just about everything about this. So yeah. Dr. Zayas says need to have balanced views. Yeah. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Newton is even when he and I before he started getting back to work, and he's, like super busy now. But before he started getting back to work and all that, when we did a few live streams together, you can see that he and I very frequently would go back and forth, right? Because we have no problem challenging one another's thoughts. And it's obviously out of nothing but deep respect in trying to understand. And I gathered that from him from the jump. He and I both are literally seeking to understand. And I cannot tell you how much I identify with that, because I genuinely do not care very much about whether or not I'm categorically right or wrong. I care about the assumption of information and data. Like that's what I care about. If there's a saying I use all the time, strong convictions loosely held. I say that in my trading community all the time. And it's because I think we develop strong convictions by doing a bunch of research. We have really well formulated ideas. They're loosely held in that as soon as there's good information that contradicts or sends us down a different path, I will dump the previous thing that I thought and held in high regard like a fucking rock to pick up the new thing if there's supporting data. And that's part of why I think I've been successful as a trader, is because I have no problem abandoning things because I'm not attaching my identity to these different ideas. The way I look at it is I'm analyzing information. I'm coming up with the best possible assumption I can with this information at a given point in time. And as soon as it changes, I need to change, period. It's not a representation of who I am. And as much as, financial media and, social media, as soon as you flip an idea, most people are like, oh my God, he's wishy-washy. And to me, I'm thinking, what a dumb way to look at that. Of course, if it comes to things like values need to stay adhered to even when it's inconvenient and stuff. That's a completely different conversation. But when it comes to a hypothesis about where something might go or the current breadth of information, what that indicates, I'd drop it like a rock as soon as there's better information available. Literally zero attachment to it. Strong convictions, loosely held. I think that's the way. Dr. Zayas says, can you give an example of a conviction that you let go of? Absolutely. Easy. The trading of vertical spreads. The first several years that I traded options, we talked about this yesterday during the beginner live stream. The first several years that I traded options, I used vertical spreads. And it's because they balance a lot of things. They're reduced risk because they have capped risk and profit, but they're super capital efficient. You can put a lot of them on. And you can create really good probabilistic outcomes where you win a lot. I thought for sure vertical spreads were the way. And I traded them a lot under that premise. Then I started taking a really close look at the overall trading performance of the systems. And I was noticing as I started logging a little bit into my trading career, I was looking at it and saying, I feel like I'm crushing it with vertical spreads. And the reason why I felt that way is because I would win a lot because they're high probability trades. But for any of the options traders out there, you know there's a giant downside to them. And it's that typically, let's look at an example together really quick. We could look in GameStop. If I do a $1 wide vertical spread, and typically you'll get something close to 30 cents for that. The issue here is I'm collecting $30, but I'm risking $70. So do the math. I need more than 2 wins to overcome every single one loss. So even though I feel like I'm winning all the time because I am, it doesn't fucking matter. Because when I have a handful of losing trades, it wipes out 2.3 times plus my winning trades, not including fees. So as soon as I started taking a really hard look at that, realizing that, yeah, okay, verticals, they have a place, but I was literally like flat. I think I was up a little bit money with them at the end of like several years of trading them. I was like, this is fucking trash. So I had been trading them for several years and then I literally pivoted. It was over a weekend and I just stopped trading them entirely. So that is an example for Dr. Zayas. Can you give an example of a conviction that you let go of? That's a massive one for me. Because I spent a lot of time fucking with those and it just wasn't really worth the time or effort. Oh, we have a New Zealander. Fleet Hall. Let's see if we have New Zealand. New Zealand. We don't. Let's get the right spot then. Christ Church. Damn, that's like not fucking hella strict there, huh? Christ Church. Like, damn. Like real specific, isn't it? Sweet. So now we have New Zealand. That's fantastic. Fleet Hall, if you can, whenever you get around to it, find us somebody from Papua New Guinea, would you? Because they're like pretty fucking close. And I feel like you can make that happen. And then also it wouldn't hurt for Tasmania. If we can get like a lemur or some shit, that would be kind of cool. And then we got Bangkok, Thailand. Always good to have a Bangkokian. That's beautiful. Okay. Over there. MFN says, do you think the GME option positioning Friday could lead to a Diddy party type action next week? So we're going to have to really get into the Diddy party classification so that I'm on the same page as you. Are we inferring that there's going to be a lot of like roofies and then really unrequested homosexual activity that's like one directional? Or are we talking about something where there's just like a lot of, are we talking about the P. Diddy parties before or after midnight? Maybe that's what I need to say. So is it going to be pre-midnight Diddy party or post-midnight Diddy party? Because I think that will be the primary differentiator of how we might classify. Because I could see GameStop price action being something like, pre-midnight Diddy. But I do think it becomes a little more dangerous if we're kind of forecasting post-midnight Diddy party, because then that means like shorts are getting fucked pretty bad. And I don't know if I see the conditions for that, at least as of right now. Who knows? It can always happen. But I don't see that amount of baby oil in the options as it sits. So yeah, I think I could see pre-midnight, little bit of action, some surprise, some half advances, I think we could see the really awkward moment where you bring like your hot girlfriend or your wife and you think Diddy's trying to take your girl, but then you realize like Diddy's trying to take you, right? That's like a different kind of fear. I think that would be part of that pre-midnight thing. And then I think the post-midnight is when the doors are locked and you're trying to find a fucking window to get out. And Diddy now has baby oil everywhere. That I don't think we're at that point yet. I think the shorts felt that previously, but I don't know if they're going to be quite at that point in the near future. So yeah. Royington says he did some horrible shit to women. He did. He beat the shit out of that one woman. I saw it. I think it was him in the lobby of the hotel. I'm absolutely not saying that yes. I think the main thing I'm just highlighting is that it's a strange happenstance when, you know, most guys are slightly insecure. You have like a really hot wife or something, or a girlfriend typically, because it's not that committed yet. And you're like, yo, I want to show my girlfriend off. But it's like, you know, all these guys are like trying to hit on her. That gets a little old. And I think that moment that you realize that like Diddy actually isn't interested in the girlfriend, is like more interested in you. I think that's terrifying, because then it almost primes your brain where it's like, wait a minute, like maybe like my girlfriend, right? I almost would prefer that. That is really emasculating and insecure. But I think the process of like Diddy targeting me would be like real terrifying. So yeah, I mean, he felt comfortable. I saw a clip where he was like touching Mike Tyson's leg. That's a different level of comfort. Like completely. A very different level of comfort. And then Mike Tyson like moved his hand, and Diddy didn't care. So it's like, that's a different level of comfort, I would say. Yeah. So yeah, let me know if that answers the question, because I wanted to make sure that we got to the bottom. I always want to seek first to understand again the quality that we were referring to, and then I think we're there. James says, when you say you sell calls at a ratio, what does that mean? I gave an example. What? James, I gave literally a straight up example. Did you not see the example? James, we did this. Don't do this to me, James. You bastard. I'll show you. I'll show you just because I'm a nice guy. So in short, the way that the ratio would work is we would have a certain number of shares. And then when we sell a call against those shares, we would sell less calls than the number of shares we have, is all. So the way to think about it is essentially you just need over 100 shares, because the fewest number of calls you can sell is one, right? You can't sell a half a call. And each one short call represents up to 100 shares of the underlying. So in that context, as long as I have literally 101 share, I now have unlimited profit potential. Now, obviously, in this case, I would have 100 of the shares covered and only one uncovered share. So that's not really what I would want, right? So ideally, it would be at least something like 150 shares. So now you have 100 shares that are covered, and then you have 50 shares that are uncovered. But the idea in general is to strike a balance depending on what you want to see happen. But most of the time, like in this example, I wouldn't sell a call against it unless I had something like at least 500 shares. Because the main thing is I don't want to sacrifice the profit potential. So I want to sell calls at a very light ratio against the longs, maybe one, maybe two here, definitely no more than two. So yeah, the idea is to try to make sure you're not capping your upside, and you give yourself the biggest ability to take advantage of the upside when it happens. But that goes back into having like a really, really solid plan about how you're going to manage the trade as it gets there. because that's one of the things. I actually have a video coming out next weekend, next Saturday, that's about trading meme stocks with options. And I've made a couple videos really geared more so towards the ape community to try to help frame using derivatives in order to make like better trade decisions. So yeah, that video will come out and it'll talk about some of these things, but a big part is having a solid exit plan, which I actually think the majority that I find of apes, they actually tend to not, which always breaks my heart to a degree, because the reason why it breaks my heart is like you don't make any money without an exit plan. Like if there's not a way to book profit, then the only thing we do is watch something and show profit, and then profit goes away. And then it was there, but now it's gone with nothing really to show for it. So yeah, it's always a little bit of a bummer when I see that. H says, what's an exit strategy is an RK quote. Yeah, we saw that actually in here when we were looking at this stuff. We saw him say that. Again, the problem there is that he has an exit strategy and he's used it a lot, because I can see him building the account by booking wins. So he absolutely has an exit strategy. There's absolutely literally no debate about it. He joked as if he doesn't, because I would make the same exact joke. Just like I would make the joke of, no matter what I do, the stock market does the opposite. That's obviously not the case, right? Because I'm fortunate. I make a good bit of money trading. So it's like I make that joke because it's funny, but it doesn't actually represent what I'm doing. It's the same thing here. Like him joking that he doesn't have an exit plan is literally just a troll comment because he's having fun with people, I think. Cedric says, with options, you have to. Shares is different. It's not. It's not different. That's the problem. Is when we look at, let's take a look at this together really quick. And we'll go into on demand, we'll start getting us set up to go through the CATS trades because we're here. So let's go back to 2021 and we need to be in February. And it looks like Feb 1st is his first update. So we'll go somewhere around here and I'll show you. So with GameStop, I don't know what it's doing here. I don't know if this is actually what happened, if it actually went to this, or if this is just on demand. Did it actually do this on the 1st of Feb? Is that right? The crazy part is I don't know. Yeah, so it looks like it did. It looks like the last price was $225. So it looks like it actually did do this, which is fucking nuts. So yeah. So here, for example, this is actually a hilariously well-timed example. But first thing I want to show you, the very first thing I want to show you is the same thing I see every single time before a squeeze. Every single I've looked at all of them. Volume is up massively, not trivially, not a little bit. Volume is up. When I'm trading the movements in GameStop, this is what I look at, because I will always reiterate this point. GameStop does not follow standard technical analysis. Of course it does, to a degree. I want to be very clear. That doesn't mean that like your standard rules apply, not at all, right? Most people I notice when I say things, they take the null, meaning the inverse, but I don't often mean the inverse. I mean a middle ground. So what I mean by that is, for something like GameStop, let's say before this price movement started happening, I had support or resistance flagged at 38.50 for whatever reason. A lot of times, other stocks that move more normally will hit a line of resistance, can always go through it, but it'll typically bounce around it for a little bit until we see if demand or supply is going to win out. If demand does, it'll go back up through. But there's normally a little bit of contention. And I can show you that in just about every other stock other than things that are primed for squeezes. The problem when you're looking at something that is essentially squeeze prone like this is it's a completely different rule set. And I've talked to you all about this now because I started kind of looking at the overall amount of analysis that I've done, right? Because I quantify things. I want to know what I'm doing. Even with like the herniated disc bullshit that I have, I started looking at it and I have like 34 hours of research just into reading books, studies, podcasts, learning about the back, because right now I have a fucked up herniated disc that I'm learning about. So with GameStop, it's literally light years past that at this point, right? Like it's hundreds of hours that I've spent looking at it, studying not just GameStop, but squeezes, the behavior of squeezes. And it does not attribute well to standard technical analysis. Like if somebody drew a Fibonacci extension on this, I literally couldn't care less. I couldn't possibly care less. It doesn't mean anything here. If it gives a trader ideas and it's useful to them, beautiful. I love that. Do whatever works for you. But what I can tell you is that as soon as there's some sort of condition that causes a movement of price, fuck your Fibonacci's. Fuck the resistance that you think is there. Right now, in this case, GameStop is up at 322. That is not because the structural business, the valuation of GameStop has now changed and it's at 322 because of that. It happened specifically because of structural constraints that break standard price rule sets. So that's why when you're doing things like technical analysis in something like GameStop, you have to pay attention to the profit mechanisms and the signals that correspond with the profit mechanism, in this case, of a squeeze. They are highly unique. They exhibit defined behavior that I've already quantified for you to a degree. The video that's going to come out actually next weekend goes into way more of the quantifiable behaviors. But the punchline is, when you're looking at something like this, you have to understand how it behaves and then tailor your analysis to how it behaves. And again, one of the things I can definitively tell you, most people know that I don't speak in absolutes, but this is an absolute. Before every single squeeze I've seen with GameStop, before the squeeze happens, there is a massive expansion in volume. Every single time. Now, that does not mean, again, don't take the null of what I'm saying to infer that every single time there's an expansion in volume, it equals a squeeze, because it does not, right? I can show you right here. Volume here at this point went from 50 mil to 127 mil. There was no squeeze here. I can show you another time back here. Well, volume went from 13.2 mil to 305 mil. There was no squeeze here. So it does not mean every time you see a massive expansion in volume, it equals a squeeze. But I can tell you before every single squeeze, there is an expansion in volume. Really important trait to be aware of. Because when I'm structuring trades, that's the exact kind of thing I'm personally looking for. It gives me a ton of clarity around what to look at and when to look. So going back to the exit plan part of this is, if you have stock, which I think was Cedric was saying that if it's different with stock, or did I fuck that up and did I say that that was somebody else? Hold on. There we go. Cedric. Yeah. So Cedric says with options, you have to have a exit plan. Shares is different. The reason why shares is not different is that if I'm holding shares that I got here at $5.33 and GameStop is trading anywhere in here, trading at 88, trading at 322, the difference is if I don't have an exit plan for a certain price move, then even though if I bought, let's take a look. If I bought, this is old examples, we'll leave that to working only. Let's say that I bought 100 shares at $3. We got in early. We got in the elevator early. We have 100 shares. On that 100 shares at this point, I'm up 30 grand. Nice big profit. Super, super, super big fan. Great. Guess what? If you don't book that profit or some of that profit or set a stop for that profit or do anything to secure that profit, As soon as GameStop comes back down, which it will, I guarantee it, that is another trait of squeezes, a preamble to the video that's going to come out next week, is that it always comes back down in price. Always comes back down in price. And it's because of the function that leads to a squeeze. It's how they behave. It is a structural irregularity that leads to the price movement. That's why the move is not sustained. Because as soon as the underlying conditions abate, price will return to its nominal level, whatever that is. So if we're trading a squeeze and we hold it while it's up, that's sick. If we continue holding and do nothing, it's going to come back down. And then what? You're holding a trade here that you had 100 shares that was up 30 grand. And then as it comes back down to whatever its nominal price is, let's say it comes back down to like 15. Well, now you have something that's worth $1,000. Big problem. We've just made a massive mistake, because another thing traders do is forget that you can always re-enter a trade. So for me, if I was trading GameStop with shares for squeezes, I don't do that. I prefer options. But if I was using shares, what I would do is set profit targets based on different levels that I would scale out as it hit these different levels. Then, as soon as GameStop finishes its squeeze, because again, it's going to, anything that squeezes is going to finish at some point and return to some sort of nominal level. It's going to happen. And then when it comes back down to whatever that nominal level is, I can just buy again. I can just buy more shares. But traders are so linear in their thought process that they think like once they're out, the trade's done and they just move on. And it's so silly, because you've done all this due diligence, you have all this research, you have this conviction, you have something you like. If nothing else has changed other than this temporary price movement, because we know it's temporary because we studied the profit mechanism, as soon as that abates, we just get back in, as long as nothing else has changed. So yes, you absolutely need to have an exit plan, whether you hold shares or if you hold options, because otherwise you're just going to watch the value of your account look really beautiful, but then you're not going to hold any of the money. It's going to go away, which is a giant problem. And this is exactly why I can tell you this is not what Roaring Kitty does, because the account shows, obviously, selling positions for gains, but it also shows capital appreciation within the account. You cannot do that if you hold something as it goes up, then back down. You have to take exits. So, great question though. Love that one. I got to do a switch over and I got to get into my watermelon. We're probably going to have to grab a mango orange in a little bit as a replacement. Oh, damn. Give me 1 sec. I just spilled some. Cool. Sorry about that. Watermelon seltzer water is the way. Okay. So are we all caught up? Generational Capitalist says you should start a squeeze watch list. I mean, I inherently do by the way that I scan markets. So, I mean, for me, it's kind of, yeah, it's something that I typically pick up on when it happens. Not all of them, obviously, but squeeze is for me a much smaller part of the way that I trade. It's a much smaller part of the overall book. But all right, let's move this here. Let's grab our little tracker. And we got some work to do. That Lauren says, I've held all the way up and all the way down like 4 times now. This time I do have an exit strategy and a re-enter strategy. I'm not playing this time. That's good. That's exactly what you make the fucking money. That's like, make the fucking money. Then if you could have made more money, we call that a high class problem in trading. If you've made money and you could have made more money, high class problem. Low class problem is you made money, then didn't make money. That's a low class problem, because if you've not made fucking money, make the fucking money. I love that plan, Lauren. That's exactly correct. It is absolutely correct. I literally could not possibly agree more with you there. All right. So let's take a look. We did 29 Jan. So now we are here in 1 Feb. Let's get into it. So 1 Feb 21, and we already know shit is going crazy. So the total gain that we're seeing is 21,222,508.63. The cash in the account is 13,817,295.47. And then the value of the account is now 35,794,795.47. Okay. So now anything change? I see we're still holding the 16 April 2112 call. So no change here. And he's had this for a little while now. And he has 50,000 shares, which let me double check where he was at here. 50,000. So same shares. And here he has still the same 500. So he's holding 500 of those 16 April 12 calls. And now 16 April 21. Now the date is 1 Feb 21. I'm just tracking the DTE because this is one of the things I'm trying to identify. So 74 DTE remaining. One of the things I'm very curious about is what's the exiting behavior around these different time frames. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on. Roaring Clitty says, wow, I think I was just called low class. Well, I didn't call you low class, but if you did that, you do have a low class problem. That's true, because you don't have to worry about taxes because you didn't make any fucking money. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do with the money you made because you didn't make any fucking money. You don't have to worry about how much more you could have made because you didn't make any fucking money. So yeah, I agree. Those are like general low class problems. Yeah, but you're not low class. I don't think so at all. Semi-Christian says, a little voice is whispering that this data could be extracted with AI and put in Excel so we can just start the analysis point. Just a little voice. It actually couldn't, not well. And I wouldn't trust it. So for Semi-Christian, if you want, you could absolutely do that for sure. 100%. But yeah, I think that you're going to miss a ton of detail. Roaring Clitty says, what if I did it so many times now, it's my identity? That's the cool part. That is literally the cool part. You can always change your identity. Totally up to you. There's no imperative at any point in your life. You get to decide who you are, what you value, what you're about. And you've already told me before, earlier in this chat, that you have a different fucking plan. So you now are not getting ready to deal with low class problems. You've already outlined a plan to deal with a high class problem. So I offer to you, you've already changed your identity by developing that plan. And then the next time we get a big squeeze, we're going to be talking about what to do with your high class problem, which I eagerly await. Those are the fun ones in general. So take that, Roaring Clitty. Roaring Clitty says, I think that was someone else. Oh, I think it might have been that Lauren. Well, just you too. Do the same thing. Do that same exact thing. Okay, so no other change here. Let's move on to 2Feb 21. And we have total gain 7. This is an important day, I can already tell you. 7598. 758.63. This is a very interesting day, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. Total cash is about the same. So 13,817,567.62. And then value is 22,171,317.62. Okay. So this is an important day. Why do you think that this is an important day in my opinion? There's a few things that I see here that are really, really important to me. And then give me 1 sec. I'm going to let the dog out and grab another mango orange. All right. So here's the main thing that I see. When I look at the price movement between these 2 days and I look at the overall gain that he had, not so much on the shares, but on these options, it's actually really, really important to note the difference between these, right? So in this case, he was up 10.7 mil. The end of Jan, he was up 15.96 mil. From here, he was up 9. So this goes back into the entire thesis that I have with respect to how he trades his options, which is kind of the inverse so far of what I've talked to you all about in terms of having an exit strategy. Because the exit strategy here is not based on price. Now, again, I'm not saying that he doesn't have one. He clearly does. But what I have seen a few times is because when I look at the way that he holds these options is a lot of times he takes them in pretty close in time, but not always. So we have a couple areas that I really need to go back once we finish going through all of these to dissect more in detail. Because here, for example, that he got out of the 15 Jan 21s, the 17s, and the 15s, but he kept the 10s and 20s all the way in until like 10 DTE. And then he took the other ones in at 1 DTE, right? Like that's actually, funny enough, it's a very clear identifier to me that this is actually not a straight up solidified plan at all. This is something that's kind of being worked out as we go, which is interesting. Now, for those that don't know, I don't really care about eating that much, but I do need some calories. So I'm going to have this little pouch thing. It's 180 calories and it has 12 grams of protein. It's apple, sweet potato, banana, almond butter, collagen, and lion's mane. And it'll take me just a second to get down. It's pretty quick. And then that's it. Boom. 180 calories. Done. Don't have to worry about it. There's no chewing. There's no fuss. Done and done. Hot nitrogen, does it taste good? I like it. I think it tastes okay. I think I'll tell you the flavor. The flavor is apple pie. I don't know that I would call it apple pie. Like, I don't think it actually tastes like that, to be completely honest. But yeah, it tastes fine enough. I'm very much a utilitarian feeder. So I do not care at all about, well, that's a lie. I mean, obviously I like good food, but I don't care that much. Like, if there was a way for me to have like a pill that could nourish me fully and never have to eat, I would pick that. I'm not a foodie by any means, like even a little bit. Dr. Zay says, what's it called? It's called Re-Up. I get them off Amazon. Lon Swayze says, my son likes these as well. The funny thing is like, before I found these ones, which is like the adult version, I literally would have the baby food version, which is always hilarious because everybody would think like, oh, you know, we're grabbing it for our baby, which we don't have one. I'm the baby. And the running joke was that if we have kids, that I'm going to be fighting the kids for their little, for the baby food pouches because I like them too. And I'm bigger than them. So they're going to have to figure that out. That's going to be difficult, I think. So, yeah. That's the main thing I see here. The fact that he had this position that literally was up $15 million. And then now it's up only $3.8 million. So this goes back into highlighting the risk tolerance, what he's looking for, and it highlights a lot of the mindset that he's using here that, again, I find very, very interesting. So this I find interesting as well, that he forecasted when he's backing off the daily updates. I think he started them for a little while, but he like went before he was doing like weekly updates. So we'll see where he goes to from here. So this is 3 Feb 21 and looks like no change. So total gain is 7,853,008.63. Get this out of the way. And then cash 13,817,567.62. And then value 22,425,567.62. Okay. So same, no change. He's another day in on these options, 72 DTE. Easy update. Vladimir says he already sold 500 of those April 16 calls. Yes, he did it at 2 different points. We already know this. So he did it first on 25 Jan. He took 200 down. And then on the 27th of Jan, he took 300 down. So, yep, we know that. Down here, 19 Feb 21. 19 Feb 21. Now we are down to 2825. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. 2825 130.64. That's nuts. Cash has moved a little bit. So 11,882,702.71. And then value is at 17,397,952.71. I knew it. So he pulled money out of the account here. He pulled a non-trivial amount of money out of the account. He pulled a few $1,000,000 out of the account. Very interesting. And he doubled his shares. So now he added, so he's still holding these. These have 71 DTE. And then added, let me come over here, added 50K shares. Let me take a look. What was his prior cost basis? So prior basis here was 14,8947. And then now we have 100,000 shares at 26,7986. And now I'm seeing what he added his basis at. I'm going to grab a seat. So it looks like he added the basis at 38,7025. 7025. Interesting. Okay. So now we have end of update 26 Feb. 26 Feb 21. And by Fev, I obviously mean Feb. I say we go through Feb and then, well, we'll see how many more there are. Like we'll do like a few more and then we'll get into some tinfoil hat stuff if you guys still want. Because these ones should go pretty quick, I think. Total gain now is 11,952, 630.64. The cash in the account now is stable-ish at 11,882,579.21. And then the value of the portfolio is at 26,525,329.21. And 11,952. There looks like a slight rounding error here, but not bad. Yeah. Hot Nitrogen says, why don't you put the dates in a format Sheets understand so it'd be easier to manipulate data later if you wanted? Because, well, one, these are dated how I want. These I can just parse out pretty easily. Really the entire purpose of this part of the analysis literally is just to get a fingerprint for his trading. That's like the entire objective. So I already have like other sheets that have already pulled all of this stuff out, but I literally want to go through line by line and look at it. It's the same thing when I look at, a lot of people are really shocked that like as a professional trader, well, professional retail trader, whatever you want to call it, full-time trader, that I still actually largely prefer to manually input my own trades. Like I still physically type them in versus automating it, which is not hard to do. And it's literally based on an entire preference. So yeah, that's generally why here at least. So he's still holding these. And now it's 26 Feb 21, 26 Feb 21. So now we have 49 DTE. So now these are starting to get to a point where something may or may not have to happen at some point in here. These are other just scratches where I figured out the price of his other stock purchases. I'll move this up here so it's out of the way. And then here we go. So now we have 8 March 21. And now total gain is 25. So he's up massively again. 25,816, 130.64. The cash in the account is about the same. So 11,882, 936.46. And then the value here is 40,389,186.46. So slight deviation in these. This looks like just extra interest earned, something like that. Doesn't look like much. And we're still holding these. So this is now 8 March. 8 Mar 21. And now we have 39 DTE. So again, this goes back to what we were talking about before, which is still very much looks like he's managing these not based on, yeah, he's not basing it on some sort of profit target that I don't see. Interesting. Okay. So then let's go to 23 March. Oh yeah, we're flying now. No change to position size. Total gain here is 23,912. 380.64. Cash on hand is 11,882,812.96. And then value is 38,485. 312.96. Okay. So he's still locked in there. And now the date is 23 March 21. So now we have 24 DTE. So it's now I'm kind of getting excited because it's coming up on, he's going to have to do something with these options soon. And I'm actually quite eager to see when this happens. The other thing that I find really interesting for 101, 40, 92. Interesting. So he does, why? Like, why does he do this? So now he does like a couple in a row, 24 March 21. I haven't really been able to figure out this, like the posting pattern. It's like erratic. And the one thing I see, it's like when it's making more money, he posts more. I can clearly see that. And then it's almost as he's losing money. And then 24 March 21. Okay, total gain is 14,805. 130.64. Cash 11,882,812.96. And then value is 29,378,062.96. Okay. And we're still holding these, which are now one more DTE, so 23 DTE. Now, the good part here is that these are so far in the money that there's no love lost to hold these at these point. Because with the underlying trading at 120 or, over 100, these are like so far in the money. And then here, 31 March. 31 Mar 21. Roaring Titty says you got to look at the events, not just the numbers. Yeah, tell me. That's why we're doing this on the live stream. So you guys tell me what was going on these days. Because that's something we can definitely take a look at together. Because again, that's why I'm tracking the the dates in between these is because it, like, I can see clear tendencies between the posting frequency, right? So here we're up $1 million. Then we get a post 2 days after up 3. Then we get a post after where it's up 3.9. Then essentially it started going static. So nothing happened. We're up 3.9. Then 3 days later, we're up 7.9. Then a day after that, we're up 8.2. Then we double. So it's a day after that. Then we double again. So it's a day after that. We cut in half. So we get it a day after that. It doubles again. It's a day after that. So like here, it's like clearly very exciting. Then we get 2 days in a row where it's at 7.6 mil, and then it goes dark. And then as soon as we have this 2.8 mil update on the 16th, 7 days later, we get one that's at 12 mil. And he goes back to this kind of standard cadence almost where, but then again, here we go from 23 mil to 14 mil, and now we're getting another update on 31 March a week later. So really, really interesting. Total gain here on 31 March is 25,231,880.64. And then cash is 11,882,911.02. And then total is 39,804,911.02. Cool. And we are still holding these. And now it is 31 March, which gives us 16 DTE. Cool. So he testified to Congress on the 18th. Yeah, and then he posted right. Yeah, so I don't think there's a good chance that this in here, I don't know when he got, do you guys know what, was he deposed? Did he have to testify or did he choose to testify? Do you guys know the answer to that? Because I do not. And I think that would actually be an interesting data point because that would also inform some of his posts, I think. Then we have 1 April, 1 APR, 21. Oops, 1 APR, 21. And total gain here is 25,403, 630.64. Hash 11,882,979.98. Value 39,976,729.98. Oops. This looks like a slight rounding error, so it looks about the same, and everything else is the same. So now we have it on 1 April 21, which is 15 DTE, still no change. And now his options are sitting at 9 mil gain. So, and they're coming in on time. They're still so far in the money that he doesn't really lose much by holding them. So he's not like bleeding a bunch of theta. So I don't think he cares so much about like theta decay or optimizing for that at all. Willie says, what's RK strategy so far? Anything noteworthy? I think it's two things. It's definitely, obviously, playing the appreciation of GameStop. The parts that confound me is that I don't think the cat actually thought GameStop would be worth $200 in like a natural valuation or over $200. Like I don't actually think he thinks that because he's a value investor. He knows better. So one of the things I find really interesting is that he continues to hold some of these positions as they're ebbing and flowing at these much higher price levels. And he's just kind of like seemingly holding. And that is really interesting because, again, part of the game is understanding the profit mechanism of what you're trading. So here, again, he's smart. So he knows what he's doing, and he knows that a squeeze doesn't materially change the value of a company. So as it's going through a squeeze, I know that he knows that this is a temporary thing. So with that as the case, I think a big part of what he's doing here, at least seemingly, oh, fuck, I messed this up. Hold on, sorry. This one's 15 DTE. And then this one was 31 March 21. This one's 16 DTE. So these look like they're just based on like time. And this goes back, I genuinely believe Off Putin says he's stacking shares. He's not. Like, he already put on all the shares, at least as of, you know, to this point, right? Because he added 50,000 shares back in 19 Feb, and he's been sitting on over $11 million of cash. So he's not stacking shares. He's obviously building shares when he wants. There's no doubt there, but he's done nothing with shares in this. He's just adding periodically, and then he's holding these options for a really long time. And that, I find, again, it's from a trading perspective, it's illogical to hold them as he has. So then we have 16 April. $21. And the total gain is 19,902. 513.83. The cash in the account is 3,535,248.01. So we obviously used a bunch of cash here. And then the value of the portfolio is 34,473,248.01. Okay. So the 16 April 12 calls are gone. Now we need to figure out where they went. So to do that, we're going to look at his new $200,000 position, or 200,000 shares. So prior, he had 100,000 shares. So if I have 100,000 shares, and the basis on that 100,000 was 26.7986. And now we have 200,000 shares, and our new basis is 55.1774. So the basis of the added shares, so let's see. So the basis of the added shares was 83,562. So added 100K shares at 83,562. And then the 16 April 12 calls sold, I think. And we can confirm that really quick. Because Putin says he exercised for 50 and then bought 50. It literally wouldn't make any sense to do that. It would literally make zero sense to do that. So I do not think that that's what he did. So let's see. But we can test the theory, because maybe it is true. I'll take it as if it's true. So we think we have 50,000, because the problem is 50,000 shares, 50,000 shares. So we have 50,000 shares then at 12. Off Putin says 154.69 plus 12 divided by 12 equals. That again, I think you're looking at the wrong thing here, because the last update that we got from him was on the 1st of April. So when was this posted? Yeah, he absolutely did not exercise. I know for a fact he did not exercise. Do you know why I know he didn't exercise? It actually makes the problem set even easier. Don't even have to waste the time on that. I know definitively he did not exercise. Any guess? Average the current share price with his 12 strike. It doesn't matter. Unless no, maybe. Okay, so no, I redact that. I don't know for a fact. That's true. I don't know for a fact. But the reason why I strongly don't think he exercised is because if it's the April 16th and he took it into expiration, which is be the most logical place to exercise your option, if you hold it into expiration, I don't think he exercised early. They wouldn't be added yet, because he posted this at 1:20 p.m. Pacific time on the Friday the 16th. His shares wouldn't be settled then. The exercise literally doesn't happen that fast. It would be the next day that they're there. So they wouldn't be there yet if he exercised. So if he did the logical thing, take it into expiration so that he's not giving up extrinsic value, then it's the 16th. If he took his options into expiration that were in the money with the intent of exercising them, which he absolutely could have done, then they wouldn't be there until the next day. They wouldn't be in the account 20 minutes after the market closed on the 16th. So I don't see that. And then Off Putin says he paid $600K to exercise. Yeah, it literally doesn't make sense to exercise. That's the point. It literally doesn't make sense. So I don't believe that he did. That is my best thesis right now, is that I don't see that he did. Mr. Over says, just be direct and tell us you're bearish on GME. I'm not bearish. I have no, again, this is the person, or this is like the kind of people that I find, like when they hear that I sell calls against shares, they think that means I'm bearish. If I hold shares, it's a bullish position. It's not bearish. I don't want the stock to go down if I hold shares. So no, that's absolutely not. That's not correct. I'm not bearish. I'm very direct with what I think about GameStop, and in terms of the way it performs, and in terms of, and moreover than that, depending on what I want to happen doesn't matter. TCM King says, I don't think he could get that cost basis without exercising to get 50,000 and then bought 50,000. Yeah, let's take a look at that, because that's a great point. And that's, I think, the next natural segue. So let's see. So essentially what we need to see is the price behavior between the 1st and the 16th. So I think, yeah, wait, do you know where I can get a non-split adjusted chart? Because that would be better. Let's go to the end of April and let's see what this looks like. He absolutely could have, if this is even remotely correct. And then let's just do that math really quick. Let's see. So we were talking about 50,000. and then 50,000. And then we think some of that might have been done at 12. It would have been technically 12.2 because that was his basis. And then we'd have to figure out whatever the residual would be. Then this equals this times this. Okay. So then, all right, I'm just going to throw this into ChatGPT. It'll be a little bit faster. So the original scenario is if I had 100 shares of stock at a basis of 26,796, now I have 200,000 shares at 55.1774. Let's say I'm just going to say bought. I'm not going to bother telling it that I exercise anything. So I bought 50,000 shares at 12.2. What is the basis for the remaining 50,000 shares I added? Let's see. All right. TCM King says, just multiply your 15 April 2021 chart price. The problem is I don't trust it, right? Because the other thing is I can't just use the 15 April because there's a window here, right? So I don't know. Like he could have bought those 50,000 shares. Like if the scenario that we're working with is that he exercised 50,000, which again, I don't see it yet, but I'm open to it for sure. Because he also uses, I think, what is this, E-Trade? I don't use E-Trade. So maybe E-Trade shows the shares faster than any other platform I've seen. That could be. Again, strong convictions loosely held. Happy to abandon it if I see data that lines up. So, but when I look at this, the problem is we can't use the 16th, the 15th, or really any other period before that because he could have bought those 50,000 shares anytime in here, right? So any point during this, which we wouldn't know. Off Putin says only 12 would come out of current cash, not 1220. It's again, Putin, you're looking at the wrong thing. I don't care if it came out of cash. Whatever came out of cash doesn't matter to me right now. All I'm doing is I can figure this out by basis. That's all I need, right? So when I look at the basis of the shares, that's the equation that we're working with. So, Roaring Titty says some brokers auto exercise an hour or so before the close, right? No, definitely not. Absolutely not. They would not do that because exercise is done after the close. So even if I choose to exercise my options in a day, it's not going to be settled and see them until later in the day. But what does this say? Thus, the basis for the adding, see, I don't think it's right because then the added shares in this scenario, the added shares would have been at $154, 9124. And I just don't think that's correct. Because then his original position was 100,000. And then his basis in that 100,000 was 26.7986. Total cost here equals this times this. So then here, well, off Putin, the problem is like, and again, this is why I need a pre-adjusted chart that I trust. Because right now, I don't actually trust what I'm seeing here in GameStop is accurate. So we can finish this really quick. So essentially, we just need to do equals sum of that equals sum of this equals this divided by 55, 1774. Lines up perfect. Lines up perfect. 154.91. This, I also think, yeah, no, I think you guys are right. I think you guys are right. Because the other thing is this is showing last price at 154.69. So then this to me looks like he would have bought right before the close because that lines up really well with this. Yeah, you guys are, I'm 100% wrong. You guys are 100% correct. So he added, so this looks like, because here this is, oh, I need to see a chart. I still believe that you guys are right based on what I see here. I still think that that is absolutely the most likely that I see now, but I need to see like a GME non-split adjusted chart. Does Yahoo Finance do that? So the first split was in 07, which doesn't matter. No, I don't, come on, man. Let's see. This doesn't tell me when the splits were. That's kind of really annoying. Just want to see something. Yahoo Finance. Do you know if Yahoo Finance does this? GME. Let's take a look at this really quick. And then let's do, we want to do, Off Putin says the shares had not touched 83.50 since Feb. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I want to confirm. Because as long as that's the case, then I literally completely agree with you guys. I think that that is spot on. Let's do 6 month, 1 day. And then we are in 2021. And we are in April. Yeah, completely agree. Okay. So I think this is certainly confirmed. Then 50K of the 16 April. Thank you for the help, guys. 12 call exercised. And then 50K bought to open at 154.9124. So now we have no options. That's perfect. Yeah. Off Putin says math don't lie. Yeah, that's the beautiful part. And again, this is another thing that I clearly am learning, right? Because when I look at this, this is completely different than any other platform. So I've never seen a platform that will credit the shares. Now, this leads to another potential thing because I'm just not sure if he exercised, because he might have exercised early. And I don't have a way to identify that. But there's a chance he could have exercised between 1 April and 16 April, which opens up another really interesting question. So let me see if ChatGPT can answer that for me. He uses, is this E-Trade or Fidelity? This is E-Trade, right? Is that accurate? Because E-Trade. Okay, thank you. So let's take a look. Within the E-Trade platform, if I hold an option, and let's say that I hold it into expiration. I hold an in the money call into expiration that I want to exercise. When will the shares appear in my account? Very, very interested about this. And then Off Putin says the shares closed at 156.44 the prior day. Yeah, so it was like obviously trading around that 154 handle. Here we go. Okay, so if you hold an in the money option into expiration and choose to exercise, yeah, see, it says the shares will typically appear in your account by the following trading day. So usually on the Monday after expiration. So this leads me to believe that he exercised slightly early. I'm going to add a note here. Early question mark, because I don't know, but I believe this is early, which is an important note for me, believe it or not. Wow. What a banger. What a fucking banger. So this is super curious. All of this is super curious so far. I'm gonna pause us here before we get into the recent stuff. And I want to recap some of what I'm seeing. So the first thing that I'm seeing is that most of the time he's holding the options very close, if not all the way into expiration. Very, very close, like all the way in here. And I've seen that multiple times now. In this case, it looks like the overwhelming probability is an early exercise, and it's probably because he was expecting to lose all the extrinsic value anyways by taking it into expiration. Now, again, it's a suboptimal choice. It doesn't actually make sense to do that. Now, the only reason why this could make sense to take it all the way into expiration is because they're so far in the money that he would net that difference if he unwound the position. But based on what most of us have seen so far before the Chewy stuff, it doesn't really look like he unwinds the positions. So that entire scenario is actually quite fascinating to me. And watching him take these options so far into expiration is really, really interesting. The other thing that I notice is that the total gain on the account obviously is massive, massive, massive volatility. I see the peak here was 33 mil. And then when he left off, he was at essentially 20 mil. So that is also very interesting. So Roaring Titty says he stacks the shares. Yeah, and that's something that Newton told me, that based on what Newton had seen, that he's never unwound. Although I do think he unwound to get into Chewy, which we will need the tinfoil hat for that part if we want to go into that, which I'm happy to. This one here. So if we take a look at, we have to zoom out. See this, we need Newton. I need to hit Newton up because here it is. I'm slowly figuring out how to navigate this stuff, but he has stuff everywhere. It's real tricky. So here Newton has shown me, you know, that essentially he scales the account. And yep, this all looks right. And again, so this Newton already covered this, no surprise. And then, yeah, because so we've done the cost analysis on the Chewy position. Let me grab my hat. All right, now we're ready. Oh, whoa. Hold on, just so everybody can see that. Whoa, it's like, gotta back up. Here's the hat. The hat in its full glory. So now that we have the hat on, we can take a quick look at the Chewy position. Because again, I think the problem with the Chewy position is that there just was not enough money in the account. Now, Roaring Titty says, I don't think so. He was trading with multiple accounts. He had money in other places he used for Chewy. Again, maybe he did, but I just don't see it. And the reason why I don't see it is because, and again, who knows? This is why the hat's on, is I don't know. It's pure speculation. But the reason why I don't see it is because, let me consolidate this stuff down so we can zoom in a little bit. The reason why I don't see it is because when he comes back, he came back here with 210 milli. So with 210 milli, why, if he had literally another 210 milli, why would it not just be here? He obviously has made a lot of money. And another thing I'm even more interested in, to be completely honest with you, is I'm not convinced that from 16 April 2021 to 2 June, that he went from 34 mil to 210 by just trading. Absolutely could have, but I'm not convinced that that's what happened. And it's just because I can't prove it one way or the other. What is the compound annual growth rate from 2021 to 2024, moving from 34 mil to 211 mil? Just out of curiosity. So it's a 3-year period. TCM says, would you have 400 million all at one broker, at least two? I don't see the reason to split it between two. Again, like if you're already at the 200 million handle, so yeah, he could. And again, the other thing that I would absolutely highlight is I don't see any reason why he wouldn't have money elsewhere, right? I'm not suggesting that he doesn't, but my main point is I think the money that he would essentially have to trade would be, TCM King says, rumors E-Trade threatened to close his position. I heard that too, but again, that's later into this. My main point, and maybe you guys will have an opinion on it. So my main point here is that when he came back at 2 June and he has $211 million, why wouldn't you come with all the money that you're going to trade if you had another $200 million that you were going to use for something at some point anyways? The other thing is that when we look at something like this, we have another really interesting scenario, in my opinion, where it's clear that he would have used options in the meantime, because the compound annual growth rate for the 3-year period for him would have been about 85%, which again, it's insanely good, but that I could see him doing that. Like, that's not overly crazy. In this case, it looks like I don't see why he would come back if he was expecting to use $400 million to trade and have $210 million in the account. Why not just have it all in one spot? Especially for the way that he rolls, I don't see why he would split them. Yeah. Orange Guy says, but why would he buy calls, exercise them, and sell them instead of just bagging the premium? Well, you don't bag the premium. If you buy the calls, the premium's going to go away. So yeah, that's the reason why. It's the same reason why he uses calls here. It's for leverage. So one of the things I can tell very clearly from his options positions is that he unequivocally uses options for leverage. Even in this case, he actually doesn't need to use options for leverage here, right? Like, he has enough money for sure, but he still prefers the leverage. And I think that that's, again, like an artifact of the way that he trades and the way that he rolls, really, which is, again, pretty nuts. So Blonde Swayze says there was a couple run-ups since April 21. He probably perfected the game. That's the problem, though, is like, I just don't see that. Based on what I see here, like, I don't see him perfecting the game. Again, I want to be so clear. He's incredible. And he clearly has definitely timed things very well, very well. But one of the things that I can tell you, again, by just looking at this, is that the way he's trading is not really predicated on timing. And I don't see any evidence here that he perfected it, right? Because if he perfected it, we wouldn't have a 33 mil account that drops to 7, that then goes back up to 25, that goes back down to 20. So the problem that I see with this idea that he's like, and again, I love the way that we, hold the cat in high regard. We should. What he's done is insane. But I still think it's really important, again, to look at things as objectively as possible. And one of the things that I can see going on here is, to me, it looks pretty clear that the timing is not perfect. I don't see perfect timing here. I see massive account volatility, massive. And I see most of his trades being managed by time in the trade, not by taking profits at advantageous points. So I don't see the timing argument. It looks to not be the case, at least as far as what we know so far, which is fascinating, isn't it? Because even the fact that he was willing to exercise these, but then to buy in he bought 50,000 shares at $155. You want to talk about a fucking choice? That's a fucking choice. Because again, if we think about the psyche and the background of him as an investor, he talks about how his background is as a value investor. There's clearly no world that he actually thinks GameStop was worth $155 there. Like, there's no world that he thought that. And this, to me, looks like a confirmation of his pivot from a value investor, which I absolutely saw him talk about in one of his live streams, where he talked about how he would value things and then they would move differently. And that would get under his skin after a little while. Semi-Question says, for clarity, Tinfoil, it's on. You can see it's on. It's a visual representation of the speculation. This is all speculation because I literally can't prove any of it. So the stuff that we can prove are the things that I can work out via math. I can look at money coming in and out of the account, like all of those things. But I can tell, again, from this purchase, that's not a value purchase. There's no world that he would have thought $155 is fair value or even below value for GameStop. There's just absolutely no way. So Willie says, wasn't he tired of price not meeting his value targets? Exactly. And he talked about that in one of his live streams. We can see if we can find it. Again, like we have the tinfoil hats on and everything. We can go in for a little bit. My dinner's not going to be here for a little while. So we can get in. We got a fresh mango orange, so we're ready to rock. Let's see what we have in these. No. I think it might have been a live stream. Here we go. Let's try one of these new ones. Willie says Mexican food. No, we're doing a place called Carl Strauss. It's kind of like a pub. So the guy that got me into investing, I talked about him last night. He was one of my high school teachers. He was a junior ROTC instructor. He's this guy right there. He's over at my house right now hanging out. Actually, he's here for like the weekend. We've kept in touch. I refer to him as my stepdad, but he's the one that I refer to him as, I refer to him as his stepdad. He's not like in any sort of relationship with my mom, but like he took very much like a father role in my life. And he's the one that introduced me to the concept of investing in high school, which he literally is the dude that changed my life. Anyways, he likes burgers. So that's why we're ordering from Carl Strauss tonight, because when he's here, it is whatever works for this dude. So yeah. That Lawrence says, I was wondering if you were having Mexican tonight. Yeah, no, I was literally joking with Mel about that, about how you guys advocate for her sometimes with the Mexican, but no, not tonight. So Semi-Christian says, has anyone tipped his driver? No, not me. I mean, I tip them always well, but no. Jonathan says brewery. Yeah, exactly. That's what Carl stresses. Vladimir says, don't skip past the 55,1774 cost basis on the final 200,000 shares post split 1380. Yeah. Yep. Willie says, oh man, I have a high school teacher who I respect. Yeah, they like that dude literally changed my life. So yeah, he became, and it's funny because his son, he had an adopted son that actually committed suicide. And then I had an abusive dad that wasn't in my life a lot. So it's just the hilarity of the universe, but it kind of put both of us together at a point where we both kind of really needed each other. And it formed this really, really incredible relationship that was just pure happenstance. Well, whatever we consider happenstance. Rhino says, every time I say I am trading anything but GME, the ape community calls me a shill. It's hard to follow GME and actually make money without abuse. Well, I don't know, Rhino, I can't speak for you, but in that case, at least for me, like I keep it a buck, right? Like it is what it is. Whatever I do is whatever it is. So like there was that person earlier in the stream that was pissy with me because they were saying that I'm bearish because I'm selling calls, right? It's like whatever they're going to think is whatever they're going to think, man. But like, I honestly couldn't possibly care less what that one person thinks, because one, literally the statement doesn't make sense, right? When we look at something like a covered call, covered calls make maximum profit when the stock is above your short call. That's where maximum profit is. So again, that's just people being ignorant. It's people that don't understand how things work, and they're just kind of looking for something to look at. That's genuinely what I believe. So for example, if I take a look at this scenario again, let's say that we have just 100 shares is fine. And I can get rid of all these other ones now. And let's say that I sell a call against these shares. Where's my max profit? Right now in this scenario, GameStop is trading at 22. It's right here. Where's my max profit in this trade? It's fucking up. It has to go up for me to hit max profit, even in a covered call. So when people say things like, oh, you sold a call, you're bearish, it again, it's pure ignorance. So like, for example, so that's just that guy, I immediately discount whatever they think because it's illogical. The people that I think it makes sense to truly onboard their opinion of you are people who know you really well. And there was an actor who said this at some point. I don't know who it was, because I was watching a YouTube short where somebody was paraphrasing what they heard. It was an actor that was paraphrasing what they heard another actor say. But essentially, it's something to the effect of, if you have a problem with me, text me. And if you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. I actually like that a lot. I think that that's a really smart way to look at it. So Rhino, for the internet people that have a problem with you, just tell them to text you. And if they do not have the number to text you, it tells you that they don't know you well enough in order to come up with that opinion. So yeah, whatever they say is what they say. Don't even worry about it. Willie says haters gonna hate Aristotle, I think. Yeah, that's probably that Aristotle, probably. Yeah, I think that's right. Roaring Titty said, my 5th grade teacher taught me how to use chopsticks. She paid me to grade math tests after school and took me to Chinese. She was really awesome, kept me out of trouble. Yeah, that's so fucking sick. I love that. That's super cool. It's one of the reasons, again, it's one of the reasons why I do this stuff is because I've had a lot of people positively impact me in my life that I would be in a completely different spot. And sometimes it just takes a couple interactions to send somebody down a completely better path in their life, which I think is really cool. Like, I genuinely value that. I think that that is so unbelievably cool. All right, so let's go back into this and let's see what we can learn here. I need to turn on the volume so that you can hear. And let's see.
Move it up in size. Where is it up there? Yeah, look at this. Oh, man, I need to have this numbered. So they got some trading here. Yeah, 2023. So look at this. You still got them trading in the 90s here. And oh, let's look up where they've been trading the past out of upside. And with RFP, I do think that's the case. What's the other one? SWN. So I had a smaller number of them in here. RFP, it's here. Why didn't you tell me RFP was in this spreadsheet? Maybe you did. I wasn't listening. So if I click this, does it bring me right to it? Okay, look at that. 300 million market cap elsewhere as well. A 15%. Oh, I thought it was up more than that. I haven't tested this in a while. Let's see. As well. I forget what the bond prices of Tentacle were, but then I thought Tentacle,
I don't remember where it is. I'll have to go through them and see if I can find it. I do not remember where it is at all. Let's see. What? I can't. Let's see what this one is.
I'm back, and I try to think about why everyone thinks that, and the most obvious reason is just because we all lean on those oversimplified ETFs to measure the style's success. But I mean, that's not really successful over the past decade. Reasons why.
Maybe this is it, where it says why I'm not a value investor. Roaring Titty says it was in his live stream when he's talking about a spreadsheet. That's so tricky because I don't like. I've seen like pieces of his work around in different spots, and I just like haven't mentally bucketed where each of these are. Semi-Christian says ChatGPT would be useful. Yeah, I'm happy to run it through ChatGPT. Let's see. And this thing is like completely locked up for some reason.
I'm back, and
all right, so let's see. Grab this, drop this into video summarizer. And then let's see. Okay, so summarize this video. Let's see what that comes up with.
I try to think about why everyone thinks that, and the most obvious reason is just because we all lean on those oversimplified ETFs to measure the style's success. But I mean, that's not a good way to measure a bona fide value approach. It's So
the summary, I'm just going to read you the summary because it's a little bit faster. So this says it starts with him explaining his style, makes it clear he's not offering day trading trips or quick stock excitement. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? The beginning of the video starts with him saying he's not offering quick stock excitement. And then that's just so classic. I love that. And then it says value investor with a twist. He says he identifies as a value investor, but he doesn't fit the traditional model. He rejects the idea that value investing is dead. But he doesn't rely on discounted cash flow. He focuses on a broader framework where value is one of the many factors. He incorporates technical analysis into his strategy, which obviously is contra to value. And he aims for aggressive 50 to 100% annualized return. Acknowledging that his approach may not suit everyone, he emphasizes lumpy returns, which is exactly correct, which meaning some years will outperform while others might fall short. It literally is perfect. And the reason why it's perfect is because that's a direct representation of what I've seen him do. So I'm going more into I'm asking it more about the differing of his approach. That Lauren says, break that down for the dummies. Sure. Which part? Tell me. I could take this off now because my head's getting hot. Lauren, tell me what part we need to dive into. You know I'm happy to. Let me know. Are you guys getting ads? I'm seeing comments about, I saw somebody say something about YouTube Premium or whatever. And then Lauren, let me know what all of it, what does it mean in layman's terms? All of it. You mean the value investing thing that I'm talking about? I just want to make sure I'm talking about the right thing. The value investor, the idea that value investing is dead, that stuff, and like the model thing. So, okay, so yeah, let me run through this, and Lauren, let me know if there's like specific follow-ons. So value investing is a really, really distinct approach to investing, and it's very specific to investing. It's not specific. It's not tied to trading. And value investing is really predicated on searching for companies whose current stock value is below, to a degree, whatever the target value is, whatever somebody thinks it should be. And the way that people arrive at what they think it should be largely depends on their models. A very common one is called a discounted cash flow. And it's essentially, it kind of does what it sounds like, where we're trying to discount future cash flows to figure out what the current price of something should be. So his general approach is, that was his basis, that was his foundation. And we can see that represented as we go through like a lot of this earlier stuff, right? So like his little spreadsheet thing here is really specific to trying to find things at value. Now, the problem with value, well, there's a bunch of problems with value investing as an effective tool. It does work just fine, to be clear. But in terms of his return profile, it doesn't work that well at all. So value investors are not typically targeting 50 to 100% returns. It's just unreasonable. Most of their stocks will move much less than that. The other thing is most value investors do not bother with technical analysis, because technical analysis represents interim movements when really they're most concerned with their model and their pricing, because that's where they think something should ultimately land. And then the prices in the model would get updated each quarter as new financials come out. So his general approach, as he was outlining there, is obviously really interesting because it's completely blending different things together, which is unequivocally just fascinating. And the way that he trades, in terms of one of the things he was talking about, is lumpy returns. Well, that's the nature of value investing in general. And you can see traits of those lumpy returns here, where things go up, things go down, things go up, things go down. Now, with the whole lumpy returns thing that I find fascinating is because it tells me that he's not actually really trying to time things super well, that he's okay holding through these different, movements up, movements down, and so on and so forth. So yeah, the whole prospect of like his origin, you can tell, is very value investing focused, but the way that he trades, obviously, this is not value at all. I think he came across GameStop and thought that it had decent value in the beginning, but you can tell he abandoned that fully, because the way that he traded this is trading the thesis of value, in my opinion, meaning that he thinks GameStop should be worth more in the future than it is now. But the way that he set this entire thing up from the beginning doesn't jive with, again, the approach for like a normal value investor. A good example of a value investor is Warren Buffett. That's essentially one of the primary current state users of it, at least at scale. So yeah, the departure clearly happened. I don't know when it happened, but it definitely did happen. Do you guys know? Maybe it was in the live streams. When did his early live streams go through a bunch of different positions? Yeah, it looks like it. So here he has a bunch of different positions. Here he still has a bunch of different positions. Let's click this one really fast.
I mentioned I trimmed OVV just to raise some cash. My cash is getting low.
Okay, so yeah, here he has a ton of stuff. Very standard value investing approach. Okay, so this was 19 AUG 2020. Still value, I can see that here. Let's take a look.
Shall we pull that up?
Yep. So this looks like he's still holding multiple things.
Let's do it. Much. This is not. A lot of other oil stocks look super bullish, but through I kind of just ballparked it. Although I was curious, brick and mortar and.
Okay. So this one was. When was this one?
Possibly announced it could be
26 AUG. So let's fast forward a little bit. So clearly here, still value.
this guy, but his
So here he's introducing Cohen. I want to see if his spreadsheet's in here. There it is. Santos says, how long does this meme stock mania run? What are the limits to this? Well, I think meme stocks are never going to go away. I think that their shape will change, and what is currently a meme stock will ebb and flow. But yeah, I don't see meme stocks ever going away at this point. I think meme stocks are going to continue to be a thing, and it's because of social media. I don't think it'll ever change. So let's see. I want to go through this thing a little bit more and see if I can find any of his current positions. Because this looks like he's just doing valuations, right? Like this is a cash flow model. So he's trying to come up with different deflators, and he's coming up with different assumptions of where he thinks things might go. And you can see like these are just looking at different companies. But what I want to see is if he has a snapshot of his portfolio. Same thing. This looks like it. This looks like his portfolio. Yep. So this, yep. So I can see the percentage of his portfolio. So GameStop is now 17% of his portfolio. So this started to happen. When is this? 28 AUG 2020. Okay. So now let's open up another YouTube window really quick. And what I want to do is actually look at the movement of his position, meaning in terms of the concentration. So these are during the live streams. Yeah. TCM King says, this is why people think he has more than one account. His E-Trade is YOLO account. We never saw a YOLO post that shows any of his value shares. Well, because my hypothesis is that at that point, he became highly concentrated. And that's what I think we're going to see. And that's actually why I'm doing this exact exercise right now, is I want to go back to like the beginning, like here. And I want to see what his distribution of positions were. So in this case, this is 7 AUG, and we can grab his portfolio tracker. Let's see where it is. This is different. Let's find it. That looks different. unless he changed the structure a little bit. So this one is called RK Tracker. Yep. So we're in there. Let's just see if we can find it. So what I think we're going to see is, I think we're going to see his position in GameStop build and then consume everything else. This is like super blurry. Can I get something I can read? There we go. Price. So this doesn't look like in his portfolio. This looks like valuation stuff. So we have to find his portfolio. Not there. That's valuation stuff. We've seen this already. More valuation. More valuation. Is this? Percent of valuation, 52 week. I don't see anything in here that shows like percent of portfolio. I don't think this is the same page.
What's the stock? What's this look like? Yeah, it didn't. All right, so it sold off, and that was the thing. It looked like it might still hold up well, even if oil.
Simon Christian says, this is better than a detective TV show. Do you realize that? Yeah, it's so funny. I like trying to dive into this and see what we can find. Roaring Titty says, I think that is his portfolio. He has a very wide spreadsheet. Yeah. It just looks different than this. Because here I can clearly see this is in what? DT. So it would be way further down. It could be. Oh, did you just see what I saw? There's Luna. That's funny. TDC, Intel, Zag. Yeah, so Roaring Titty, I agree with you. TCM King says he already had a GM YOLO post only showing GME way before the date of the video you just played. Ooh, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, so let's see. We have the first one in here. So the first one I see is September of 2020. Did I not go back far enough? So I think that's the first one that we grabbed. Let's go all the way down. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so now all the way down at the bottom. This is the first that I see, which was 8 September in 2019. Interesting. Very interesting. So and this would make a lot more sense too, because I think at this point, what I see here then is I agree with you that this is like just a straight up YOLO account. And then he had stuff elsewhere that was doing other stuff. That's a great point. What a great find. Because this is definitely from 2020. So we saw exactly to your point. We saw the really concentrated GME position. Now, here's the part that doesn't make sense to me then. Why is it here only at 16%? Let's see what the position is here. Let's see if it mirrors what we find around 28 Aug 2020. We can see this. Does it show the actual position? Different accounts? Yeah, so it could be. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out is I want to see if whatever he's tracking in here is the same as his other account. But so I can see the percent of the portfolio, which is fine. I need to see like the number of shares though. And I don't know if he shows that. Do you guys know? So if he does, that would be really helpful. Because then we could very, very easily identify if he's mirroring the position here or elsewhere, or if it's like a completely separate account. I don't see it here. Damn. Damn, Daniel. Damn it. Okay, so that's something that we're going to have to, I'm going to add that to my to-do list for the next one that we do. So we need review RK's 2024 trades and analyze live streams to parallel current portfolio or to parallel or multiple portfolio and to see if what he's reporting in or on Reddit mirrors what he's tracking in his report or in his Excel sheet. Okay. So I got some instructions for the next one. Jonathan says, Eric, why don't you have a red headband? Complete oversight. That's because it's his. I have a tinfoil Viking hat because this is mine. I am, again, I don't really copy people. I like to do my own shit. So this is exactly why. Okay. So we'll have to explore that because I don't know the answer to it yet. But what I want to see is if there's somewhere in one of these that shows us the number of shares he has, because then that will actually tell us a lot. And it'll help us explore a little bit more about the multi-portfolio theory and like what it could look like. Because I do think that there's a lot behind the theory right from the jump, right? The fact that we see $100,000 here. And then we obviously can see that he has other stuff elsewhere right from the jump that it looks like he's kind of tracking in a centralized spot and then likely executing in different places. So I can totally see that. So yeah, I'm interested to see what we can learn from that though. Because here we can see the overall snapshot. All right, gang, it is time for me to wrap up. Go grab some dinner. Absolute blast hanging out as per always. I'm looking at doing a live stream with Peruvian Bull this coming week. We shifted it from this past week because I had to go get the shots in the old disc. So we're going to try to reconnect, I think this coming Thursday at 1700 Pacific time. So come hang out. I think I haven't talked to him before, so I don't know much about his background. I just got connected with him and I thought it would be fun to meet him, have a conversation, explore his understanding of, GameStop, what he's seen, and, just bullshit a little bit about different ideas. So that's the game plan. As always, if any of you need anything, hit me up. I'm always around. Be an outlier, be an ape, be an outlier ape, whatever most closely you identify with. But most importantly, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you all around. Take care.